Welcome to weekly podcast of the week, where your hosts, me, Pentuple, we've got Average Debate Enjoyer, and we've got Druid, and we are going to be bringing you 3 segments every week. If you want to keep up with the weekly happenings online, you're in the right place. Welcome to episode 1.
This is Carla Aquatine Ungerforce, and this is my stone cold lock of the century or the week.
I'll be doing misconception of the week.
Tyler, Average Debate Enjoyer, and I'm going to cover usually retard of the week.
And yeah, I'll be introducing a British cigarette every single week. There'll be a Democrat from California who's an absolute faggot.
Every week, we'll try to join together and do the misconception of the week, retard of the week, fact of the week. So, first, our misconception of the week. Jimmy Kimmel's temporary firing was the biggest First Amendment infringement of our generation. Jimmy Kimmel's show is governed by the FCC. The reason this is a misconception is because the FCC governs its content differently than the First Amendment analysis that we're typically used to. And this is because of pervasive media broadcasting. So the analysis is different when that content can become uninvited into the home. You know, you can stumble on it browsing through channels. Children can easily access it. Unlike YouTube, where you have to kind of go to that platform to seek out that content, pervasive media broadcast being sent over the airwaves is governed differently by the FCC. And this case comes from a Supreme Court case called Pacifica. This is a misconception that is being spread online by retards and the mainstream media. And I think it's on its face ridiculous for most of us who remember how academic the left was during COVID, during the last election cycle, when they were very academic about, oh, it's a private platform, they don't have to govern. But not only that, even if the FCC had done any more than a 30-second clip on a podcast from Brendan Carr mentioning Jimmy Kimmel's pathetic comments, honestly, is how I'll put it.
Frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt, we are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out, because we licensed broadcaster are running the possibility of fines or license revocations from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion.
There is no circumstance where this would have been any First Amendment infringement, and even further, certainly not the biggest First Amendment infringement. Yeah, you guys have any thoughts on that?
I do, actually. I think that a lot of people frame this as a First Amendment issue because they don't understand that there's 5 clauses to the First Amendment, and one of them is freedom of association. And when your freedom of speech trumps freedom of association, then you've overreached on one particular clause of the First Amendment to exclude another. They are free to hire and fire whoever they want. They don't have to hand you a megaphone. Nobody is suing Jimmy Kimmel for his speech. Nobody is legally going after Jimmy Kimmel for his speech. This is the game, the word game played by dishonest people, cough-wick, who pretend they're free speech warriors when it's somebody on their side getting persecuted. For justly, we remember Muhammad Khalil, not a free speech issue. You don't have the right to come here and become a citizen. It's a privilege we give you, and if you endorse terrorist groups, we take that privilege away from you because we don't want you as a citizen. It's not a First Amendment issue. Nobody's persecuting you for your speech. You lied on your form. It was fraud. That's why he's getting deported. I just kind of see this as the silly word game always played by these people who know better. We had this conversation when they were putting books with blowjobs in classrooms. No, it's not there because we think kids should see pornography. It's there to educate them, so it actually has a good purpose. They know that there's supposed to be this sanitized place where humble people can go, children can go to not see swear words, to not see violence, to not hear politically motivated hoaxes like the shooter was a Trump supporter. And we want that. We want to have these clubs where they're held to a higher standard so people can get introduced to these things that they're going to see as soon as they leave that club, as soon as they change the channel to channel 56 or to HBO, where it doesn't have almost any regulation. So there's outlets they could have go. Jimmy Kimmel can get a show on HBO like Bill Maher did when he made his stupid comments, but you don't have a right to be on that network. Sorry, get the fuck out of here. It's not a free speech issue.
They don't even know the entire aspects of the issue, even when it's concluded, and they try and spin it in a way that's oh, I won, even though in reality people are still choosing, like you said, Ty, who to associate with, and that's their right.
Yeah, it's also it's obtuse coming from the side that thinks you should be fired for using the N-word. I mean, and we can break this out from Jimmy Kimmel down to the people that are getting fired for, you know, pretty heinous commentary online. These people would not scoff at a white person being fired for using the N-word or for saying something that they consider racist. So it's a principle that they're beating us with that they don't honor themselves. And I think it's easy to throw that back at them and say, well, do you think a white person should be fired for using the N-word while you're so adamantly defending people who are mocking the death of an innocent American? It's disgusting and dishonest and unprincipled.
And if they're actually talented, they can get on independent media and see if they're actually able to do what they do on traditional media, because if they're actually good, they would be able to do that transition.
Yeah. Do you remember why people said Elon Musk buying Twitter made Twitter suck and Blue Sky rose up for a bit? It's because they brought back all the Nazis and they had to hear positions they didn't agree with again. All those people were getting banned and they were getting cheered on. Ban that motherfucker. Trump got banned? Hell yeah! And then as soon as it turns around and goes on them, it's cry bully mentality. It's punish my enemies to the harshest extent and don't do anything to me, and if you do, you're bullying our side. It's always from a place of oppression. We're the most oppressed. Us poor upper middle class people that live in our rich parents' house still, we're always the most oppressed. And then as soon as you bring up, like the same week this was happening, we got a report from the Supreme Court, was it? YouTube was being forced to censor people by the government. The parent company of YouTube, Alphabet, said they felt like they were being forced to do it by what the government officials were saying. And that came out the same week, and nobody gave a shit. In fact, we saw people hand wave it off and say, well, you know, they didn't do anything to them, so even though this was proven in court, not that big of a deal because it wasn't illegal.
That's a good wrap on the misconception of the week. And now we'll turn to Tyler, average debate enjoyer, for our retard of the century of the week.
So this retard of the century of the week, I had a lot of choices. I was scrolling through Twitter, talking to communists, which are always pretty retarded. I was looking, man, but there's like, out of all the retards, I want to go to my favorite retard. My retard of the century of the week is Kilmar Obrego Garcia. That retard getting deported because that retard was a criminal, and that retard does not belong in the United States. Now this retard beat his wife, was trafficking human beings through the country, got pulled over while doing it at one point. This retard was here illegally, had a deportation order against him, and the Biden administration just decided not to do it. They ignored immigration judges' orders to deport the man and left him in the country. The Trump administration's been going through a bunch of fights with him, and I'm just going to name off some of them. Motion of clarification and enforcement of SCOTUS order, petition of writ of habeas corpus to compel return, emergency motion for expedited release and due process hearing, motion to quash criminal indictment on arrival, over and over and over. And it goes down, the list is about 15 things long. They just filed motion after motion, delayed this as much as they could. And yesterday we finally got the ruling. That motherfucker going to Uganda. So they gave him some different offers. They said you can go to Costa Rica if you cooperate with our administration. He refused to cooperate. He fought it out through everything he could at the courts. He just got denied over again. They said, if you don't cooperate with us, we're going to send you to Uganda. Well, you going to like it there because you about to go now. And he, I think, is pretty much at the end of his appeal chain. He's just lost over and over and over and over again. Told he had to be deported because he was here illegally. He filed for asylum. He got denied that because he couldn't prove any credible fear. He's also denied 37 nations. I can't be deported there because there's credible fear. Most of these he provided zero proof as to why he had credible fear. They wrote him a letter back. They said, look, you said every single nation that we tried to send you to, you have a credible fear and can't be deported there. Well, there's no proof of that, and we're sending you to Uganda. And there's pretty much nothing you can do. We've given you as much good faith as this court is willing to offer. Bye-bye.
It was interesting. I remember with all that happening and all the due process arguments that I know you and I were hearing, that all three of us were probably hearing at the time, and the hyperbole behind them, too. Oh, they're going to just deport Americans on accident. Which is, I mean, you don't have to be an expert in the legal system to understand how ridiculous that is. This was an MS-13 gang member. We had records of him being stopped, I think it was in Tennessee, mid-trafficking humans from Texas to Maryland. This is not somebody that should be in our country. The fact that they ran this much cover for him, and really you could, who knows how much of these decisions Abrego made without immense pressure from these activist attorneys that he has. I wouldn't have any doubt that he was, had people in his ears telling him, "Oh, we're gonna make a example of you to try to keep people here illegally." And look where it got them. It got them from, instead of being deported to his home country, he's going to Uganda. Congratulations, due process fighters. You've completely ruined this man's life. You're sending him to Uganda. It's certainly not in the top 20 countries I would have wanted to be deported to if it was an
Would you classify it as a shithole?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because a little bit of a tangent, but I remember when they took issue with Trump allegedly calling other countries shitholes. And then as soon as we try to deport anyone back to those countries, you can't deport them there. Why? Is it a fucking shithole? It's funny to see this resolution because it really just backfires. Of course, we're not going to hear any of these creators that were so passionate about due process talking about it anymore. Because guess where its due process got him? Deported anyway.
Hey, 41% poverty in Uganda, but they did just pass a based law that you guys will like. Being gay is illegal.
I can't go to Uganda anymore?
No, sorry. So I just wanted to point out that the same exact people that were arguing for that due process that you brought up a second ago were the same people that were endorsing 8 states trying to remove Trump from the ballot by decreeing him a criminal with no criminal trial for the federal charge of insurrection or incitement of violence. 0 charges, 0 arrests. But they wanted to decree him that just by court order and then remove him from the ballot in 8 states with no due process at all. And then they turn around and say this guy that beats his wife and traffics people through the country deserves all the due process. Again, this list it's massive how many motions and things they filed to challenge this, and then appeals they get an appeals process for every step, and then if that appeal gets denied, you can bump it up to a fucking circuit court after that. So much was thrown into this, keeping this awful human being in the United States. I don't understand it. It just blows my mind, and you can see why in the last 4 years there's been a 4.5 million voter swing from Democrat to Republican.
It's also a glaring hypocrisy when these people will comb through every single rule to prevent the deportation of anybody, especially someone like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, when they obstruct nearly every action of immigration and customs enforcement. These people are a stickler for the rules when we're deporting people, but don't even think that we should allow anything on the way in. They're the ones who abandon the rules. They're the ones who have let in all of these illegals. And I'm not saying we should just blindly be deporting people. I don't think we are. I don't think we will. And it's hyperbolic, but it's such a glaring hypocrisy when these people are such sticklers for the rules for us, and then they just blatantly break the rules. They blatantly avoid and ignore all of the rules that are designed to prevent us from having this issue in the first place. The fact that we have 40 million illegals here. I know that the official number is 11. It's been 11 for 20 years. I don't think anybody with a brain believes it's still 11 million people. But it's a glaring hypocrisy coming from the people who actively obstruct ICE to go comb through the rules and demand this level of due process before we can deport anyone. If we can't deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia, they don't want us to deport anyone. And that's where I think the glaring hypocrisy lays.
All right. Yeah. So we got the biggest faggot of the week. And he's honestly probably just the biggest faggot in the universe at this point. Senator from California, Scott Wiener. We could go over his rap sheet of just how long and how terrible his bills have been. But I hope Sadie can bring up some pictures and just scroll, because Google is just so peak for how gay he has been. Him being in politics since before in the early 90s or in the late 90s has led to the gay flag being on par with the American flag during the Biden presidency and gay pride party that they had at the White House. He went from the goddamn deputy attorney for the city of San Francisco directly into the Board of Supervisors, and then streamlined from there into the senator position from San Francisco. So he has been a backbone of the Democrat for before 9/11. The most recent, just terrible bill of just like, how did he possibly pass the bar and actually achieve his JD from Harvard when this guy is doing bills, the No Secret Police Act, SB 627, trying to ban ICE from wearing masks, when for 4 years they were saying that everyone has to wear masks so that they didn't get COVID. On top of the fact that this is just goes against all of our principles as a federalist government, is that the states don't get to tell federal law enforcement how to do their jobs. They can not cooperate like on moonshine, but like, you don't get to tell them that they can't wear masks. So let's just go over a couple more of the bills that are like on a quick list that I got up. Senate Bill 145, 2020, decriminalizing of pedophilia, enacted, permits pedophiles to avoid the sex registry so long as the age difference between themselves and the lover / victim is 10 years or less. Assembly Bill 957, transition your child or lose custody. Thankfully, this was vetoed. For whatever reason, Gavin decided to do that, which would have mandated that judges have to give custody to the parent who is willing to support and affirm the gender identity of the child. Forced social and medical transition. Next, Assembly Bill 665, state-sanctioned kidnapping, which has been enacted, actually, which permits a children 12 and older to emancipate themselves and go to a government-affiliated shelter for any reason without any claim of danger even in the home. Senate Bill 107 from 2022, which was enacted. California is a transgender sanctuary state, which means that minors can run away from their parents into California and claim that they have been discriminated against in other states for their transgender status because their parents don't consent. And law enforcement will not help to find the child if there have been sex change procedures. And if they're here for sex change procedures. I can go on and on about what he was been able to get enacted, but I mean, the last one that's just terrible is the Senate Bill 132, enacted 2020, places violent men in women's prisons, allows transgender men who are transitioning to women to be admitted to women prisons. Just absolutely horrendous stuff. I've seen even the things that I would maybe agree with in a vacuum just become tainted by this motherfucker. Just absolutely disgusting worm of a human being. Hopefully he can get out of office soon, or it would be great, ideally, if he resigned in disgrace. But that's not happening because he makes a lot of money for them and being just an absolute faggot for the Democrats.
Well, you can't imagine being a parent in a state that allows your 12-year-old to run away for any reason. How are you supposed to be an authority figure over your child when they have this out handed to them by the state? And as far as the masks on ICE thing, I'm sure in this cigarette of the week would scoff at the idea of asking a protester to demask. And they're wearing masks for the same reason that ICE is often wearing masks, which is to hide their identity. So you're looking at people who are agitating in the street, covering up their identity because they know that they're committing crimes, and you're looking at the law enforcement that's trying to prevent people from committing crimes, and you're asking them to demask. You're asking them to expose their personal identities while you're allowing these agitators to get away without any sort of consequence for the crimes that they're committing. California is lost. That state is full of British cigs.
Welcome to California. I live in an unconstitutional state.
The first couple of things you read off there, like, I never really thought of the full implications of what a transgender sanctuary state or city is. Wow. The whole part about police, if you run away from your parents at 14 and have sex with a 24-year-old, nobody gets in trouble. And then you can get a transgender surgery and the police won't help your parents locate you. That's fucking crazy. So there's a lot of things I found about the guy that does. His big push is affordable housing. He really likes affordable housing. Push, like,
clearly looking at whatever polls best with retards.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you get into these blue and red lockdown states. Is instead of giving them the best policy, it's who can run further to the left or the right to appease the majority, and that's kind of what they do. Like, that's why Kamala Harris was never going to win, because she's only ever competed against other Democrats, so she only knows how to go left of her competition.
And he's just got the most, like, ironic name for this, too. Like, you just couldn't have made a better, like, just fucking stereotypical British SIG character than just Scott Wiener from San Francisco. He went to Harvard, and he's done only fucking up San Francisco with his fucking Harvard JD degree.
San Francisco is getting fucked by a wiener, and now California is getting fucked by a wiener.
You know, when you said senator, that's a real British cigarette. I really thought you were going Adam Schiff because he just makes the news.
He's gonna be on. He's on the list. Don't worry.
SB 357 repeals loitering laws used to target sex workers and transgender individuals for suspected prostitution. Yeah, this is called the Safer Streets for All Act. More prostitutes and fucking degenerate trains.
Bro, I was with my like entire family basically, and we took a wrong turn down this just random street and there was just prostitutes just like up and down this just like residential place. It looked like some place you would go over to like a friend's house to like play some Xbox, and it's just like 10 o'clock. Them ladies would be walking up and down.
I'm working on a crime document where I go through a lot of like the particulars of what these cities have done to reduce low-level crimes. Like you see, crime's dropping, all these low-level crimes are dropping, and you find out that like misdemeanors are just getting repealed. Felonies are getting taken down to misdemeanors and a lot of things. Like you could hold somebody at gunpoint in New York City and rob them, and you'll get released that day with no bail. Like just let out. Okay, we booked you. Come back.
It wasn't violent. He didn't pull the trigger. It wasn't harm anybody. You know,
it's fucking
the implication of harm, you know? Nobody cares about that. I'm just glad that I have a flag already for when California falls. Like, the NCR is just such a nice roll off the tongue, and, like, the two-headed bear. Oh, just peak.
I will say, I didn't know about this law that they passed in California that lets was it 12 or 14-year-old run away for any reason and be held by the state. You cannot raise a child in those circumstances. That's unbelievable.
Not even California children. It was a trans sanctuary state. So if you are not from California and you run away and make it to California, they will not, and you get like any sort of trans shit done to you, they will not, the law enforcement of California will not.
They literally are breaking the reciprocity clause in the Constitution. Like, just flagrantly, and they've won on it in court. Like, they literally got a dad who mom took the child off to California to trans him, and the dad loses all custody, all parental rights, just because they've been infected with delusion and they don't actually have real help.
The state of California says that I have to pay for the chemical and physical castration of my son as child support. I'm not going to pay that child support. I'm not going to pay anything to hurt my son.
And that means you'll be going to prison?
California is going to send me to prison for that.
So, Jeff, you are going through something. You've been going through something that is probably a father's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Tell me when this started.
Started when my son was about 2 years old. My ex-wife, who's a pediatrician in Capel, Texas, started thinking that he might be a girl and started trying to transition him to a girl. And when I tried to put a stop to that, she filed for divorce and used her relationships with care providers to force me out of my house. And so I moved about a mile up the road from my sons. She filed for divorce formally, and I had 50-50 custody of him. And just after his third birthday, I took the first iPhone video I'd ever taken, and it was him telling me that he thought he was a girl because his mommy tells him a girl. You can go on YouTube and just search for "Mommy Says I'm a Girl." You'll find that video. She was telling him things like, she would put him into timeout and say, "Don't be a boy. The monsters only eat boys," and weird things like this. And she began to then socially transition him, and that led to a titanic battle in the state of Texas that culminated in me getting the procedures outlawed in Texas. And the political establishment in Texas allowing her to come to California so she could still castrate him even though I got it outlawed.
This dude fucking sucks. Get him out of office.
Scott Wiener sucks wiener.
He sucks all the wiener. He takes all the wiener. He literally fucking... He is literally the goddamn Democrats' like wiener punching bag so that they can just fucking have a goddamn gimp. I swear to God, he is the Democrat gimp.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end, remember when they canceled? You guys remember when Milo got canceled after that Joe Rogan thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it was for saying that he was for this bill, basically, that Scott Wiener passed through in 2019 that allows a 14-year-old boy to have sex with a 24-year-old man, and the 24-year-old man will not be registered as a sex offender.
All right. Thank you all for joining our weekly podcast of the week. Big shout out to Sadie Girl 216. Go give her a follow on Twitter. Whether you're watching this on my channel, Tyler's, or Druid's, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and expect to see us next week.
And remember, guys, don't have misconceptions, don't be a retard, and don't be a faggot.